Right now, I'm sitting in my car, trying not to cry, while my 6-year-old son is in the back seat, quietly asking what he did wrong. Today was supposed to be a warm, joyful Thanksgiving. Instead, I was humiliated in front of everyone and told to leave because my sister Chloe didn't want me there. My name is Melody Barrett. I'm 32, a single mom raising my son Lucas. And before I tell you how my own family managed to break my heart today, let me know where you're watching from. If you're into real stories about family betrayal and finding the strength to stand. Growing up, I always believed we were a close, loving family. My parents, Waylon and Denise Barrett, my younger sister Chloe, and me. We lived in a modest suburban home in Stamford, Connecticut. We had Sunday dinners together and took yearly summer trips to the beach. From the outside, we probably looked like the perfect American family. But beneath that surface, there was always something I couldn't quite explain. Something I didn't fully understand until I got older. Chloe was born when I was 4 years old. I remember being incredibly excited to have a baby sister. My parents brought me to the hospital, and I carried a small stuffed bunny I had saved my allowance to buy just for her. Even at that age, I wanted to be the best big sister I could be. I still have pictures of me holding baby Chloe, looking at her with nothing but pure love. But as we grew up, I began to notice the differences in how our parents treated us. When Chloe cried, everyone rushed to comfort her. When I cried, I was told to be strong. When Chloe struggled in school, my parents hired tutors and spent hours talking with her teachers. When I brought home straight A's, it was simply expected. "That's just Melody," my mom would tell people. "She's the responsible one." At first, I took pride in that role. I studied hard, joined every extracurricular I could, and helped around the house without ever being asked. Meanwhile, Chloe started developing a pattern. She'd break something and blame me, cry until she got what she wanted, or create drama out of nothing, and my parents allowed it. Every single time. "Your sister is more sensitive," they would say whenever I questioned the double standard. "She needs more attention." By the time we reached high school, that pattern was firmly set. I was captain of the debate team, editor of the school newspaper, and working toward a scholarship. Chloe was popular but constantly getting into trouble, skipping classes, drinking, coming home past curfew, and every time, my parents found a way to excuse it. "She's just figuring herself out," they would say. After graduation, I went to State University on a partial scholarship, double majoring in business and finance. I worked part-time jobs to cover everything my scholarship didn't. Chloe, 2 years behind me, barely made it through high school and went straight into community college, fully paid for by my parents. During my junior year, I met Eric Dawson. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to truly care about me. We dated for almost 2 years before getting married right after graduation. I was 22, maybe too young, but I was in love, and I believed we could build a great life together. I got a job at a respected financial advisory firm, while Eric worked in marketing. We bought a small starter home and started planning our future. When I got pregnant with Lucas a year later, we were overjoyed. Everything felt like it was finally falling into place, until it wasn't. When I was 7 months pregnant, I found out Eric had been cheating on me with a coworker. The betrayal crushed me. We tried counseling, but nothing worked. By the time Lucas was 3 months old, we were divorced. Just like that, I became a single mother with a demanding career and a newborn baby. Those first few years were the hardest of my life. I would work all day, pick Lucas up from daycare, spend the evening taking care of him, and then answer work emails after he fell asleep. Weekends were filled with laundry, meal prep, and doing whatever I could to give him a normal childhood. My parents helped occasionally with babysitting, but more often than not they were too busy, usually dealing with something involving Chloe, who had dropped out of community college and was drifting between minimum wage jobs and unstable relationships. Despite everything, I kept pushing forward. By the time Lucas turned 3, I had already been promoted twice, and I was finally earning enough to feel financially secure. I bought a more comfortable home in a good school district and started building a stable future for my son. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Not long after that, just a few months later, my father had a heart attack, and it came at the exact moment I finally thought life was stabilizing. It wasn't severe, but it was enough to scare all of us. During his recovery, I discovered that my parents were in serious financial trouble. Years of supporting Chloe, combined with poor financial decisions and my father's reduced ability to work, had pushed them dangerously close to losing their home. Without hesitation, I stepped in. I paid off their most urgent debts and began covering their mortgage and utility bills. I set up automatic transfers for their monthly expenses and added them to my health insurance as dependents. When their car broke down, I helped them finance a new one. When the roof needed repairs, I paid for it. Altogether, over the past 5 years, I've spent more than $132,000 supporting them. Meanwhile, Chloe's life continued in the same chaotic cycle. She would move in with a new boyfriend, get a job, seem stable for a few months, and then everything would fall apart. The relationship would end, and she would return to my parents' house, unemployed and struggling. She developed serious substance abuse issues, shifting between alcohol and prescription medications. Every so often, she would enter rehab programs my parents claimed to pay for, but that were actually funded by me. Through it all, I kept my relationship with my parents intact, mostly for Lucas. I wanted him to have grandparents in his life, to experience that kind of bond. Every other Sunday, we would visit them for dinner. I would sit there listening to my mom's subtle criticisms about my parenting, my dad's long political rants, and Chloe's latest drama whenever she decided to show up. "You're so lucky, Melody," my mom would often say. "Everything just comes so easily to you." And every time, I would bite my tongue, thinking about the 60-hour work weeks, the nights I cried myself to sleep from sheer exhaustion, the constant pressure of trying to be everything Lucas needed while still building my career. Nothing in my life had ever been easy. Every bit of stability I had, I earned through discipline, sacrifice, and relentless effort. But family is family, I kept reminding myself. So I continued showing up. I kept paying their bills. I kept holding on to the hope that one day, somehow, we would become the kind of loving, supportive family I had always wished for. That hope lasted until this Thanksgiving. This year, I was actually looking forward to it. Lucas is 6 now, old enough to truly enjoy traditions and remember them. I had planned to host dinner at my house for the first time ever. I wanted to create something new, something ours. I wanted our home to become the place where family gathered. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I called my parents to invite them. "Well, honey," my mom said, her tone light, "we were actually thinking of hosting this year. Your father's feeling much better, and we'd love to have everyone over, like we used to." I felt a flicker of disappointment, but I didn't argue. "Okay, Mom, that sounds nice. Do you want me to bring anything?" "Just yourselves," she replied cheerfully, "and maybe your cranberry sauce. Everyone loves that." The week leading up to Thanksgiving, I threw myself into preparations anyway. I took Lucas shopping. We picked out a cute button-up shirt and khaki pants for him, and I chose a burgundy sweater dress for myself. We bought thoughtful gifts for everyone, a nice bottle of whiskey for my dad, a soft cashmere scarf for my mom, and even a gift card to Chloe's favorite clothing store, even though I wasn't sure she would show up. I made my cranberry sauce from scratch, using my grandmother's recipe, adding orange zest and just a hint of cinnamon. Lucas helped me in the kitchen, standing on a stool, carefully measuring ingredients while wearing the little apron I had bought just for him. "Is Chloe going to be there?" he asked as we stirred the cranberries bubbling on the stove. The question made me pause. Chloe had missed the last few family gatherings, always with some last-minute excuse. "I'm not sure, buddy," I said honestly, "but Grandma and Grandpa will definitely be there." 3 days before Thanksgiving, my mom called me, and something about her voice immediately felt off. "Melody, sweetheart," she began, in that overly casual tone she used when something uncomfortable was coming. "I was just wondering, is it really necessary for you to come on Thursday?" I almost dropped my phone. "What do you mean, Mom? It's Thanksgiving." "Yes, of course," she said quickly, backtracking. "I just thought You've been so busy with work, and the drive can be tiring. Mom, it's just a 40-minute drive from my place, and I already took Thursday and Friday off, I replied, my confusion growing. Is something wrong? No, everything's fine, she insisted. I was just checking. We'll see you Thursday, around 2. After I hung up, I just stared at my phone, completely confused. What was that about? For a moment, I wondered if they were planning some kind of surprise, but given our history, that didn't seem likely. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I called my dad to confirm the time. Dad, we're still coming at 2 on Thursday, right? There was a pause before he answered. Yes, that's right. And, listen, Melody, there's something you should know. Chloe's going through a rough time right now. My heart sank. Of course she was. What happened this time? I asked, trying to keep the exhaustion out of my voice. She and her boyfriend, Craig, broke up. It was pretty bad. She's staying with us for a while. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, she was still my sister. Is there anything I can do to help? No, he said quickly. Just try to be understanding if she seems a little off on Thursday. Your mom is worried about tension. Dad, I always try to get along with Chloe, I replied, a hint of defensiveness creeping in. I'm not the one who causes problems. I know, sweetheart, he sighed. It's just a difficult situation. The day before Thanksgiving, my mom texted me. Melody, would it be possible for you to come at 3 instead of 2? I need a bit more time to prepare. By then, my suspicions were definitely growing, but I simply replied, Sure, Mom, no problem. Later that afternoon, I showed the message to my friend Vanessa when we met for coffee. That's strange, she said, frowning. First she asks if you even need to come, and now she's changing the time? Something's going on. Maybe they're having money issues again, I suggested. I noticed my dad hasn't cashed the check I sent for their property taxes. Vanessa looked at me for a long moment. Melody, you're too good to them, especially considering how they treat Chloe compared to you. I shifted uncomfortably. Vanessa had seen enough over the years to form her own opinions about my family. They're family, I said quietly, repeating the line I always used. Family is supposed to go both ways, she replied. Just be careful, okay? Don't let them take advantage of you. Thanksgiving morning arrived bright and clear. Lucas woke me up early, bouncing excitedly on my bed. Mom! It's Turkey Day! I laughed and pulled him into a hug. Yes, it is, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving! We spent the morning in our pajamas, watching the Macy's parade on TV. I had baked 2 pumpkin pies the night before, and the whole house smelled like cinnamon and nutmeg. Around noon, we started getting ready. Do you think Grandma made those special rolls? Lucas asked as I helped him button his shirt. I'm sure she did, I smiled, remembering how he had eaten 3 of them last Christmas. And will Uncle Victor and Aunt Grace be there? He asked, talking about my dad's brother and his wife, who sometimes joined us for holidays. Maybe, I said. We'll find out when we get there. As I finished my makeup, I tried to push away the uneasy feeling that had been building all week. It's just a family dinner, I told myself. Whatever's going on with Chloe, we can handle it for a few hours. Lucas carefully carried the cranberry sauce out to the car while I followed with the pies. His face was full of excitement, so innocent, so hopeful, that I made a silent promise to myself to make this a good day for him, no matter what. Ready for Thanksgiving, buddy? I asked as I buckled him into his booster seat. Ready, he said, giving me a big thumbs up. I had no idea what was waiting for us at my parents' house, but for Lucas, I was determined to stay calm and handle whatever came with grace. When we pulled into my parents' driveway right at 3 p.m., the first thing I noticed was the number of unfamiliar cars lining the street. That's strange, I thought. My mom hadn't mentioned anyone else coming. Look, Lucas, I said, pointing toward a blue sedan. I think that's Uncle Victor and Aunt Grace's car. Looks like they made it after all. Lucas's face lit up instantly. He adored my uncle. Victor always brought small toys and had endless patience for 6-year-old energy. We gathered everything we had brought, the cranberry sauce, the pies, the neatly wrapped gifts, and walked up to the front door. Before I even had a chance to knock, It swung open. My father stood there, looking slightly uncomfortable in the sweater I had given him last Christmas. "Melody, Lucas?" he said, forcing a strange smile. "Come in, come in." The house smelled incredible: roasting turkey, sage stuffing, and my mom's famous dinner rolls. But something felt wrong. The usual warmth was missing, replaced by a tension that hung in the air, impossible to ignore. "Where should I put this, Grandpa?" Lucas asked, holding up the cranberry sauce carefully in both hands. "In the kitchen, buddy," my dad replied, ruffling his hair. "Grandma's in there." As Lucas hurried off, I turned to my father. "Is everything okay, Dad? You seem tense." Before he could answer, my mom came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She gave me a quick, slightly stiff hug. "Melody, you're right on time. Dinner's almost ready." Her eyes flickered around the room, avoiding mine. From the living room, I could hear laughter and overlapping voices. Definitely more people than I had expected. "Who else is here?" I asked. "Oh, just family," she said vaguely. "Victor and Grace, your cousin Megan and her husband, your Aunt Linda." As she spoke, I noticed Lucas coming back from the kitchen, his face looking confused. Before I could ask him what was wrong, a sharp, familiar voice cut through the hallway. "What is she doing here?" Chloe stood at the entrance of the living room, arms crossed tightly, glaring at me with open hostility. Her hair was different, dyed black with streaks of purple, and she looked thinner than the last time I had seen her. But that expression, that contempt, I recognized it instantly. My mother's hand flew to her throat. "Chloe, please, it's Thanksgiving." "You told me she wasn't coming," Chloe snapped, pointing at me like I didn't belong there. "You promised." The words hit me like a slap. "What?" I turned toward my parents. "What is she talking about?" My father stepped forward quickly, hands raised in a calming gesture. "Girls, let's not do this in the hallway. Everyone's waiting to eat." "I am not sitting at the same table as her," Chloe declared, her voice rising. "You know what she did." I shook my head, completely confused. "Chloe, I have no idea what you're talking about. I haven't even seen you in months." "Oh, don't act innocent," she sneered. "That's what you always do. Pretend you're perfect while making my life miserable." By then, Lucas had come back to my side. His small hand slipped into mine, and I could feel him trembling slightly. "Mom," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "what's going on? Why is Chloe acting like this?" My mother looked down at the floor, then at my father, and finally at me. "Melody, maybe this isn't the best day after all." For a second, I just stood there, stunned, trying to process what she meant. "Are you asking us to leave?" From the living room, I could hear chairs shifting and voices lowering into whispers. My Uncle Victor stepped into the hallway behind Chloe, his expression concerned. "Everything okay out here?" he asked, looking between all of us. "No," Chloe snapped. "They invited her after telling me she wouldn't be here." Victor frowned, confused. "Melody? But she always comes to family gatherings." "Not anymore," Chloe said sharply. "Not after what she's done." "What exactly have I done?" I demanded, my confusion starting to turn into anger. Chloe's eyes narrowed. "Don't act like you don't know. You've been trying to make me look bad, telling everyone I'm irresponsible, that I'm a burden, spreading lies about me to the family." I was completely speechless. I hadn't said anything about her to anyone, except maybe venting to Vanessa once or twice. Certainly not to the family. "Chloe, that's not true," I said firmly. "I haven't said anything about you to anyone." "Liar," she shouted, making Lucas press even closer to me. "Everyone's been looking at me differently, like I'm some kind of failure. And it all started after you had lunch with Aunt Linda last month." I remembered that lunch. It had been a simple catch-up. We mostly talked about Lucas, my work. Chloe barely even came up. Aunt Linda stepped into the hallway behind Victor. "Chloe, sweetheart, Melody didn't say anything bad about you. We were just concerned because—" "See?" Chloe cut her off. "She's turned all of you against me." My mother quickly stepped between us. "Please, let's not do this today." Then, to my absolute shock, she turned to me and said quietly, Melody, maybe it would be better if you and Lucas came another time. Chloe needs us right now. The words hit me like a physical blow. Mom, you can't be serious. You're asking us to leave? On Thanksgiving? My father cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. Just this once, Melody. Chloe's going through a very difficult time, and her doctor said stress could trigger another episode. Another episode? I repeated. What are you talking about? She doesn't need to know my business, Chloe snapped. Just get her out of here. Mom, Lucas whispered softly, tugging on my hand. Why is Aunt Chloe mad? Why is everyone fighting? His voice broke something inside me. This was supposed to be a special day for him. I don't understand, I said, looking between my parents. You invited us. We brought food. Lucas has been looking forward to this for weeks. I know, sweetheart, my mother said quietly, still avoiding my eyes. But family has to come first. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. I am family, Mom. We are family. My father placed a hand on her shoulder. Of course you are. But right now, Chloe needs extra consideration. You understand, right? You've always been the strong one. From the living room, Megan's voice called out, Is dinner ready? The kids are getting hungry. It'll be just a few more minutes, my mother called back, her voice overly cheerful in a way that didn't feel real. Then she turned to me, lowering her voice. We can pack up some food for you to take home. I stood there, still holding Lucas's hand, a wave of humiliation and betrayal washing over me. They were actually going to do this. Kick us out. Just to appease Chloe's tantrum. You're choosing her over us, I said flatly. It's not like that, my father replied weakly. It's just, for today. You're not welcome at our family dinner, Chloe said coldly. So take your brat and leave. The moment she said that word, brat, something inside me snapped. She could say whatever she wanted about me. I could take it, but not about my son. Lucas is your nephew, I said quietly, my voice steady but sharp. He has done absolutely nothing to deserve being spoken to like that. Chloe rolled her eyes. Whatever, just go. I looked at my parents, waiting, just for once, for them to step in, to defend us, to say something. Instead, my mother said, I'll pack some turkey and potatoes for you, and please take your pies. We have more than enough dessert. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. For the first time, I saw my family clearly. For years, I had made excuses for them. I told myself that family meant loyalty, that blood mattered more than anything, that we stuck together no matter what. But this wasn't family, not in any way that actually mattered. No, I said coldly. Keep the food, keep the gifts, keep everything. I turned to Lucas. His eyes were already filling with tears. Come on, buddy, I said gently. We're going to have our own Thanksgiving. But Mom, he said softly, his voice shaky. What about Grandma's rolls? My mother flinched slightly, but she didn't say a word. We'll make our own rolls, I told him. Better ones. As we turned to leave, Chloe smirked, clearly satisfied. My parents looked uncomfortable, but they didn't stop us. Only my Uncle Victor stepped forward. Melody, wait. But I shook my head. Enjoy your dinner, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady despite the lump in my throat. Don't worry about us. We'll be fine. And just like that, I walked Lucas out the door, leaving behind the cranberry sauce, the pies, the gifts, and whatever illusions I still had about my family. The first few minutes in the car were completely silent, except for Lucas quietly sniffing in the back seat. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, focusing on the road just to keep the tears from falling. Mom! His small voice finally broke the silence. Why were Grandma and Grandpa mean to us? I glanced at him in the rearview mirror, his face confused, hurt. How do you explain something like this to a 6-year-old? They weren't being very nice today, I said carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make bad decisions. But it's Thanksgiving, he said, frowning. We're supposed to be together on Thanksgiving. That's what you always say. I know, buddy, I whispered, my voice tightening. That's how it's supposed to be. Did I do something wrong? He asked quietly. Is that why they wanted us to leave? That question cut deeper than anything else that had happened. No, Lucas, I said immediately. You didn't do anything wrong. Not even a little. This has nothing to do with you. Then why? I couldn't keep driving. I pulled into a nearby park, the one we often visited, and put the car in park. Then I turned around to face him. Sometimes, family relationships can be complicated, I said gently. And Chloe is upset about something. Grandma and Grandpa are trying to make her feel better. But they made a mistake asking us to leave. Lucas thought about that for a moment. Aunt Chloe was really mad, he said. Yes, I nodded. She was. She called me a brat. His lips started to tremble. I unbuckled my seatbelt and reached back to take his hand. And that was completely wrong, I said firmly. You are not a brat. You are kind and smart and such a good kid. Anyone would be lucky to spend Thanksgiving with you. He nodded slowly, though I could tell he was still trying to process everything. Can we still have turkey? He asked. And somehow, despite everything, I smiled. Of course we can, I said softly. We're going to have our own special Thanksgiving. As Lucas turned to look out the window at the empty playground, I pulled out my phone. 5 missed calls, 3 from my mom, 1 from my dad, 1 from Uncle Victor, and a string of messages. Mom. Melody, please try to understand. Chloe needs us right now. Mom. Let me know when you get home safely. Dad. Don't be upset. We'll make it up to you. Victor. What happened wasn't right. Call me when you can. I locked my phone without replying. Instead, I opened my banking app and scrolled through months of transactions, automatic payments to their mortgage, their utilities, their insurance, 5 years of support. Over $2,200 every single month. Some months were higher due to emergencies, but on average, it came out to a little over $2,200 per month. And suddenly, memories started flooding in. All the birthdays and holidays I had gone out of my way to make special for them, even when I was struggling. The Christmas I barely scraped together enough money to take them to New York so they could see the Nutcracker on Broadway. The anniversary dinner I planned at their favorite restaurant for my dad's 60th. The countless times I put their needs ahead of my own. And for what? To be discarded the moment Chloe threw a tantrum. I remembered my mom crying the first time I offered to help with their mortgage after my dad's heart attack. We don't know what we'd do without you, Melody, she had said, holding me tightly. You've always been our rock. Their rock, their dependable daughter, their personal ATM. My phone buzzed again, another message from my mother. I packed a plate for you and Lucas. Your dad can drop it off later. I almost laughed. They threw us out of Thanksgiving, and now they were offering leftovers like that would somehow fix it. In the back seat, Lucas had unbuckled himself and was watching a squirrel run across the grass. Even after everything, he was already finding something to focus on. His resilience amazed me. My phone rang again, but this time it wasn't my parents. It was my Aunt Linda. After a brief hesitation, I answered. Melody, are you okay? She asked, her voice filled with concern. Not really, I admitted quietly. Did they tell you what happened? I saw everything, she said, her tone grim. It was awful, the way they treated you and Lucas. I tried to speak up after you left, but Chloe started crying, and everyone got distracted. What is she even talking about, Linda? I asked, frustration creeping in. I haven't said anything bad about her to anyone. Linda let out a long sigh. It's all in her head, sweetheart. She's been telling people that you're spreading rumors about her, trying to turn the family against her. No one actually believes it, at least no one with any common sense. But your parents, they're walking on eggshells around her. Why would she make something like that up? Who knows, Linda replied. Jealousy, deflection. She needs serious help, Melody, and your parents aren't helping by enabling all of this. As she spoke, a notification popped up on my phone. Unusual withdrawal alert. $6,800 from checking account. Linda, I have to go, I said quickly. Something's wrong with my bank account. I hung up and immediately opened my transaction history, and there it was. My parents had withdrawn $6,800 that morning from the joint account I had set up for emergencies, with their access still active. An account I controlled. An account I trusted them with. And an account they were never supposed to touch without asking the largest withdrawal they had ever made. My hands started shaking as I texted my father. Not because of the money, but because they had crossed a line I never thought they would. Why did you withdraw $6,800 today? His reply came almost instantly. Emergency, we'll explain later. Then a message from my mother followed. Chloe needed help with some debts. We'll pay you back soon. Everything clicked into place with a sickening clarity. They had taken my money, thousands of dollars, to bail Chloe out of whatever mess she had gotten herself into this time. And on the very same day, they had thrown Lucas and me out of Thanksgiving dinner. Then it hit me. Chloe probably didn't even know that I was the one funding their entire life all these years. They had been using my money while letting her believe they were the responsible ones taking care of everything. The betrayal felt complete. Not just today's humiliation, but years of being used. Years of giving, sacrificing, supporting, only to receive criticism and conditional love in return. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother. Are you bringing Lucas to the Christmas pageant next week? He has that solo, right? The casual tone of it, like nothing had happened, was the final straw. They really thought they could treat us like this, and everything would just go back to normal. Lucas, I said softly. He turned away from the window and looked at me. Ready to go home and start our own Thanksgiving? He nodded and climbed back into his seat. Can we still have pie? He asked quietly. We'll get the best pie, I said. And ice cream, too. As I started the car, something inside me shifted. A boundary, something that should have been there a long time ago. Whatever came next, things would never be the same again. And strangely, that didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. By the time we got home, it was almost 4:30 p.m., right when most families were sitting down for Thanksgiving dinner. The house felt unnaturally quiet compared to the tense, chaotic atmosphere we had just left behind. Lucas slipped off his shoes and looked up at me. What are we going to eat, Mom? I set my purse down, took a deep breath, and forced a smile. Let's see what we've got, buddy. A quick look through the fridge told me everything I needed to know. I hadn't done much grocery shopping. I had been counting on Thanksgiving leftovers to get us through the weekend. We had eggs, some cheese, half a loaf of bread, and basic pantry items. Breakfast for dinner? I suggested. Chocolate chip pancakes? Lucas's face brightened a little. Can we have bacon too? I checked the freezer. No bacon, I said. Then I grabbed my keys again. Tell you what. We'll go to the store and get a real Thanksgiving dinner, just for us. Will anything even be open? He asked. The supermarket on Main Street stays open until 6 on holidays, I said. Come on, let's make it an adventure. Lucas stayed quiet during the drive, which gave me space to think. My phone kept buzzing with messages from my parents, but I had silenced it. I needed distance, time to process, time to decide what came next. The supermarket parking lot was nearly empty, just a few last-minute shoppers like us. Inside, it was quiet, with only a couple of cashiers looking bored behind their registers. Let's see what's left, I said, grabbing a cart. We headed straight to the deli section, and somehow they still had several rotisserie chickens under the heat lamps. It's not turkey, I told Lucas, picking up the biggest one, but it's close enough. We moved through the aisles, gathering what we could. Instant mashed potatoes, gravy mix, a bag of dinner rolls, cranberry sauce, not as good as mine, but it would do, a frozen pumpkin pie. In the produce section, we found a single bag of green beans. Real Thanksgiving needs vegetables, I explained, even though Lucas looked skeptical. As we stood in front of the freezer trying to decide which ice cream went best with pumpkin pie, a woman around my age approached us. Her cart looked just like ours, last-minute Thanksgiving supplies and a single rotisserie chicken. Backup dinner? She asked with a knowing smile. Something like that, I replied. Plans fell through. Same here, she said. My sister's kids all came down with the stomach flu this morning. I'm Natalie, by the way. Melody, I said. And this is my son, Lucas. Natalie smiled warmly at him. How old are you, Lucas? 6, he said, holding up 6 fingers, momentarily distracted from everything else. My nephew is 6 too, she said. He was really excited to see his cousins today. We ended up talking right there in the frozen foods aisle, and I found myself quickly warming to her. She was easy to talk to, open, kind. When she mentioned she lived just a few blocks away, it almost felt like more than coincidence. This might sound a little strange, Natalie said as we walked toward checkout, but would you like to come over for dinner? I have all this food and it feels silly to eat alone when you're in the exact same situation. I hesitated, glancing at Lucas. That's really kind of you, but we don't want to impose. It's not an imposition at all, she said quickly. Honestly, you'd be doing me a favor. Thanksgiving alone is pretty depressing. Lucas tugged gently on my sleeve. Can we go, Mom, please? I looked down at him, at the hope in his eyes, and made my decision. If you're sure, I said, meeting Natalie's gaze, we'd love to. We agreed to follow Natalie back to her house after checking out. As we loaded the groceries into the car, I noticed something shift inside me. I felt lighter than I had all day. Sometimes kindness really does come from the most unexpected places. Natalie's home was a cozy craftsman-style house with a bright red door. Inside, it felt warm and welcoming. Not perfectly neat, but lived in and comfortable. Books stacked on side tables, colorful artwork on the walls. Make yourselves at home, she said as she led us into the kitchen. I'm no professional chef, but I can manage a rotisserie chicken. As we worked together to put together our last-minute Thanksgiving dinner, I learned that Natalie was a pediatric nurse who had recently moved back after a divorce. She was easy to talk to, laughing at Lucas's jokes, and never pressing for details when I kept my explanation about our original plans vague. By the time we finally sat down to eat, Lucas had completely forgotten how upset he'd been earlier. He carefully arranged the dinner rolls into a basket, while Natalie carved the chicken, and I prepared the instant mashed potatoes. Should we go around and say what we're thankful for? Natalie suggested as we sat at her dining table, set with mismatched plates and softly glowing candles. I'll go first, Lucas said eagerly. I'm thankful for chicken that tastes like turkey, and new friends, and ice cream. Natalie and I both laughed. I'm thankful for unexpected company making today special, she said. When it was my turn, I felt my throat tighten slightly. I'm thankful for kindness, and for new beginnings. Throughout dinner, my phone kept vibrating inside my purse. I ignored it, choosing instead to stay present in the genuine warmth of the moment we had somehow created. After we finished eating, Lucas curled up on the couch in Natalie's living room, watching a holiday movie, already drifting towards sleep. That's when I finally checked my phone. 23 text messages, 11 missed calls. Most were from my parents, but there were also messages from Chloe, Uncle Victor, and Aunt Linda. The most recent message from my mother read, Melody, please respond. We're worried about you. I stepped outside onto Natalie's back porch for some privacy and called my friend Vanessa. Oh my God, Melody, she answered immediately. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you all afternoon. Sorry, I said. I silenced my phone. It's been a day. Your mom actually called me asking if I'd heard from you, Vanessa said. She told me there was some kind of misunderstanding at Thanksgiving. What happened? I gave her a shorter version of everything, my voice shaking at times as I described being asked to leave. That's unbelievable, Vanessa said, anger clear in her voice. After everything you've done for them? And they took $6,800 from you today, she added. Apparently Chloe needed help with some debts, I said bitterly. Melody, this has to stop, they're using you. I know, I admitted quietly. I think I've always known, but today made it impossible to ignore. So what are you going to do? I leaned against the railing, staring out at the evening sky as the first stars began to appear. I don't know yet, I said slowly. But something has to change. After we hung up, I sent a short message to my mother. Lucas and I are safe. We'll contact you tomorrow. Then I opened my email and started drafting a long message to my parents, detailing every year of financial support, every sacrifice, and how deeply hurt I was by what had happened today. I didn't send it, not yet. It needed to be written when I wasn't so emotional, but just putting it into words helped me think more clearly. When I went back inside, Natalie was in the kitchen cleaning up, while Lucas had fallen asleep on the couch. "He's out," she said with a smile. "Too much excitement and too much pie." "Thank you," I said sincerely. "You really saved our Thanksgiving," she smiled. "I think we saved each other. I would have been alone otherwise." As we washed dishes together, I found myself opening up more about everything that had happened. Natalie listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding, never judging. "Family can be complicated," she said after a moment. "But sometimes, distance is the healthiest choice." "I'm starting to realize that," I admitted. By the time I carried a sleeping Lucas out to the car, Natalie and I had exchanged numbers and even talked about setting up a playdate with her nephew. Driving home, I felt a strange mix of emotions. The hurt from earlier was still there, but underneath it, something else had started to grow. Relief. For years, I had carried the weight of my parents' financial problems and Chloe's chaos. What would life look like without that burden? When we got home, I tucked Lucas into bed, then sat alone at the kitchen table with my laptop. First, I transferred the remaining balance from the joint account into my personal account. Then, I drafted an email to my financial advisor requesting an urgent meeting. Finally, I wrote a second email to my parents, this time calm, direct, and clear. "Mom and Dad, today was deeply hurtful and disrespectful to both Lucas and me. I need time to process what happened and what it means for our relationship moving forward. Please do not contact me for the next few days. I will reach out when I am ready." Regarding the $6,800, almost 3 months of their mortgage payments alone, withdrawn from the joint account I had set up for emergencies, with their access still active, I expect a full explanation of how that money was used. In the meantime, I have closed our joint account and will be reconsidering our financial arrangement. Melody. I read it over twice. Then, before I could second-guess myself, I hit send. The next morning, I called my office and requested 2 personal days. I needed time. Time to think, to process, and to figure out what came next. While Lucas sat on the floor building with his Legos, I opened my laptop and began putting together a detailed list of every dollar I had spent supporting my parents over the years. I included dates, categories, and exact amounts. The total was staggering, over $132,000 when I factored in everything: medical bills, home repairs, monthly expenses, and emergency costs. Then, almost out of instinct, I created a second column. What had I received in return? Occasional babysitting, birthday cards, and constant criticism of how I was raising my son. Seeing it all laid out so clearly made something inside me settle. By the time my financial advisor returned my call, I was ready. "I need to separate my finances from my parents," I said, "but I don't want to leave them completely stranded." "We can create a phased plan," he suggested. "Gradually reduce your support over 6 months so they have time to adjust." "That makes sense," I said. "I want everything documented." 3 days after Thanksgiving, I received a voicemail from Aunt Linda. It was long and urgent. "I just spoke with Victor," she said. "He told me what happened after you left. Your parents were telling everyone they had been the ones supporting Chloe financially, using your money, Melody, and making it sound like it was their generosity." I felt my stomach drop. "They even said they paid for Chloe's last rehab program," Linda continued, her voice tight with anger. "I know that was your money. This needs to stop." That was it. That was the final piece. I arranged for Lucas to have a playdate with Natalie's nephew, then drove to my parents' house with a folder of financial documents sitting on the passenger seat beside me. It was time, not just for me, but for Lucas. He deserved better than watching his mother be disrespected and taken advantage of by the people who were supposed to love her most. As I pulled into the driveway, I realized something surprising. I wasn't angry. I was calm. Because for the first time, I knew exactly where I stood. The days of being their provider, their safety net, their unspoken ATM were over. I sat in the car for a few minutes, gathering my thoughts. The folder beside me represented 5 years of giving, of showing up when no one else would. Part of me considered just mailing it to them and walking away completely, but I needed closure. Taking a deep breath, I picked up the folder and walked to the front door. Before I could knock, it opened. My mother stood there, her face a mix of relief and anxiety. "Melody, thank goodness, we've been so worried." "Can I come in?" I asked, keeping my tone polite, but distant. "Of course," she said quickly, stepping aside. "Your father's in the living room. We thought you might come today." The house looked exactly the same as it had on Thanksgiving. The decorations were still up, but now they felt almost mocking. My father stood up from his chair as I walked in, his expression guarded. "Melody," he said with a small nod. "Good to see you." "Is Chloe here?" I asked, remaining standing as they both sat down. "No, she's out," my mother said quickly. "Melody, about Thanksgiving." "Before we talk about that," I interrupted calmly, "we need to talk about this." I opened the folder and placed a printed spreadsheet on the coffee table between us. "This is a record of every dollar I've spent supporting you over the past 5 years." They exchanged a glance but didn't reach for the paper. "We know you've been generous," my father began, "and we appreciate $132,000, I said, my voice steady. "That includes the $6,800 you withdrew without speaking to me first." My mother's hand went to her throat. That can't be right." "It is," I said, pulling out the bank statements. "Mortgage payments, utilities, medical bills, car payments, repairs, direct transfers, 5 years of financial support." My father cleared his throat. "Melody, family helps family, and when you needed babysitting—" "I calculated that too," I said, sliding another sheet forward. "Based on average rates, the babysitting you've provided comes out to around $2,800. I paused, letting the number hang in the air. "That leaves a difference of over $129,000. "We're not keeping score," my mother said weakly. "Apparently not," I replied. "Because if you were, you might have thought twice before humiliating me and your grandson on Thanksgiving." At least this time they looked ashamed. "Chloe was in a fragile state," my father said. "The doctor warned us that another episode could—" "What exactly is going on with Chloe?" I asked directly. "You keep mentioning episodes, but no one ever explains anything." They looked at each other again. Then my mother sighed. "She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder," she said quietly. "The doctors say it explains her mood swings, the substance abuse, her difficulty maintaining relationships." I froze. This was the first time I had ever heard anything about a real diagnosis. "When did this happen?" "About a year ago," my father admitted. "After that incident at Christmas." I remembered it clearly. Chloe arriving hours late, clearly intoxicated, starting a fight, then storming out. I hadn't realized there had been more to it. "Why didn't you tell me?" "She didn't want anyone to know," my mother said. "She was embarrassed." "So instead," I said slowly, disbelief creeping in, "you let me think she was just being Chloe? You let me believe she was choosing this behavior instead of struggling with something real?" "We were respecting her privacy," my father insisted. I shook my head. "Do you have any idea what that did to how I saw both of you? For years I've watched you excuse what I thought was just bad behavior." "We were trying to help her," my mother said defensively. "By using my money without telling me what it was for? By letting her believe you were the one supporting her? By allowing her to treat me like I'm the enemy?" Before either of them could answer, the front door opened. Chloe walked in. She stopped the moment she saw me, her expression instantly hardening. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, her voice just as hostile as it had been on Thanksgiving. "Chloe, please," my mother said wearily, then corrected herself. "Chloe, we're trying to work things out." Chloe stepped into the living room, her eyes landing on the papers spread across the coffee table. "What is all this?" she asked sharply. "Financial records," I said calmly. "I've been supporting this household for the past 5 years." Chloe's eyes widened for just a second, then her expression hardened again. "So what? You're here to throw that in everyone's face?" she snapped. Typical Melody, always needing to prove she's better than everyone else. "That's not why I'm here," I replied evenly, keeping my composure. "I'm here because I deserve respect. And so does my son. What happened on Thanksgiving was not okay." "Oh, please," Chloe scoffed. "Poor perfect Melody didn't get her perfect Thanksgiving." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. Beneath all that anger, there was something else. Pain. Fear. A deep need to feel seen. Knowing her diagnosis didn't excuse her behavior, but it did help me understand it. "Chloe," I said quietly, "I know about your diagnosis." She froze, her face going pale as she shot a sharp look at our parents. "You told her? After you promised—" "They didn't have to," I said. "You've been showing me for years. I just didn't have the right context to understand it." "Don't try to psychoanalyze me," she snapped. "You have no idea what I've been dealing with." "You're right," I said calmly. "I don't, because no one in this family actually communicates honestly." I turned back to my parents. "I didn't come here to argue, and I'm not here to demand repayment. I'm here to tell you that things are changing." My father leaned forward immediately, his attention sharpening. "What do you mean?" "It means I will no longer be financially supporting this household the way I have been," I said firmly. "I've already spoken to my financial advisor. We've set up a 6-month transition plan. My contributions will gradually decrease until they stop completely." "You can't do that," my mother said, panic rising in her voice. "Your father's health—" "My advisor will help you explore alternatives," I continued. "Refinancing options, downsizing, adjustments to your retirement plans. There are solutions that don't involve relying on me." "This is because of one bad day?" my father said, incredulous. "One misunderstanding and you're cutting us off?" "This isn't about Thanksgiving," I said. "Thanksgiving was just the moment I finally saw things clearly. This is about years of being taken for granted. Years of you accepting my money while giving Chloe the credit. Years of putting her needs above mine and Lucas's every single time." Chloe let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. "So it is about money. Thanks for proving my point." I turned to her. "Chloe, do you know who paid for your last rehab program?" She rolled her eyes. "Mom and Dad, obviously." "No," I said gently. "I did. Just like I paid for the 3 programs before that. Just like I paid for the therapy you stopped going to after 2 sessions. Just like I've been paying the mortgage on this house you're living in right now." She stared at me, stunned, then slowly turned toward our parents. Their silence said everything. For the first time in her life, Chloe had no one left to blame. Not me, not our parents, only the truth. "You let me believe that?" she whispered, her voice cracking as it finally sank in. "Yes," I said quietly. "They let you believe they were the ones supporting you, just like they let me believe you were simply being difficult, instead of struggling with something real." For a brief moment, I saw genuine hurt in her expression. Then the walls went back up. "So what?" she snapped. "Now you expect me to thank you? Bow down because you're so generous?" "No," I said simply. "I expect honesty, and I expect respect, for me and for my son." I stood up and began gathering the documents. "The transition plan starts next month. My financial advisor will reach out to discuss your options." "Melody, please," my mother said, her voice breaking. "We can't manage without your help." "You can," I said calmly. "You're both capable, intelligent adults. You've become dependent on my support, but that doesn't mean you actually need it." My father's expression shifted, shock giving way to anger. "So that's it? After everything we've done for you, you're just walking away?" The irony was almost unbelievable. "I'm not walking away," I said. "I'm setting boundaries that should have existed a long time ago." I turned toward the door, but Chloe stepped in front of me. "You really think you're perfect, don't you?" she said bitterly. "With your career, your perfect kid, your house. Some of us have real problems, Melody." I met her gaze directly. "I know you're hurting, Chloe, and I'm truly sorry for that. But your pain doesn't give you the right to hurt other people, especially not a 6-year-old who loves his grandparents and didn't understand why they rejected him." For a split second, something like shame flickered across her face. "I hope you get the help you need," I continued. "And I hope one day we can have a real relationship, one built on respect. But until then, I need to protect myself and my son." I walked toward the door. My mother followed behind me, tears streaming down her face. "What about Christmas?" she asked desperately. "What about Lucas's pageant?" I paused at the doorway. "Lucas and I will be spending Christmas creating our own traditions this year," I said calmly. "As for the pageant, you're welcome to come, as long as you show up as grandparents who respect his mother." 3 days later, I received a long email from Chloe. It was filled with defensiveness and accusations, but buried within it was something real. She admitted that her behavior on Thanksgiving had crossed a line and said she had started working with a new therapist. About a week later, my parents left me a voicemail inviting Lucas and me over for dinner, just the 4 of us. I declined, but suggested we meet somewhere neutral instead, a restaurant the following week. That dinner was awkward, tense, but it was a beginning. My father complained about having to cut back on expenses. My mother asked too many personal questions about my life. But they both made an effort with Lucas, and that was what mattered most to me. As December went on, I held my boundaries, firm but not harsh. I attended Lucas's school pageant and greeted my parents politely when they showed up. I turned down their Christmas invitation, but allowed them to stop by briefly on Christmas Eve so they could exchange gifts with him, step by step, day by day. I was building a different kind of relationship with my family, one based on respect, not financial dependence. It wasn't easy. There were still difficult conversations ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt steady. The most unexpected shift came from Chloe. She sent Lucas a handmade card, apologizing for being mean on Turkey Day and promising to try to be a better aunt. It was a small gesture, but it gave me hope. Maybe, with time and the right help, even that relationship could heal. A month after everything that happened, Lucas and I had settled into a new rhythm. Our mornings felt lighter somehow, as if a weight I had been carrying for years had finally been lifted. We made pancakes every Sunday, we went to the library on Wednesdays, and we started something we called Adventure Saturdays, exploring different parts of the city together. "Mom, can we go to the Holiday Lights Festival this weekend?" Lucas asked one morning while I packed his lunch. "Of course," I said. "Maybe we can invite Natalie and her nephew Tyler." Lucas's face lit up immediately. "Yes! Tyler said he's never been." My friendship with Natalie had grown quickly over the past few weeks. What started as a random encounter had turned into something real. Her honesty and kindness felt refreshing. "Melody, you have to stop apologizing for taking up space in people's lives," she told me during one of our coffee dates. "Healthy relationships aren't transactional." That stayed with me. It made me realize how much of my identity had been tied to being the responsible one. The fixer, the provider, the one who held everything together. And without those roles, who was I? The week after Thanksgiving, I finally started therapy, something I had thought about for years but never prioritized. Dr. Levin helped me begin untangling everything, years of complicated emotions tied to my family. "You didn't cause your sister's condition," she told me during one session, "and you can't fix it. The same applies to your parents' dependence." Accepting that wasn't easy. Some days were harder than others. When I first introduced the financial transition plan, my parents reacted with disbelief, then desperation. The first reduction in support triggered a wave of calls and guilt-filled messages. But I stayed firm. I directed them to the financial advisor, who was genuinely trying to help them restructure things. "We might have to sell the house," my father admitted reluctantly during one conversation. "Downsizing might be the most practical option," I replied calmly, resisting the urge to step in and fix it for them. It wasn't easy watching them struggle, but I reminded myself this wasn't punishment. These were consequences. Lucas, resilient as always, adjusted far better than I expected. He still asked about his grandparents from time to time, but he seemed content with the new structure, with our limited, controlled visits. The last time we met them for lunch, he chatted happily about school and Tyler, completely unaffected by the quiet tension between the adults. Chloe hadn't been there. According to my mom, she was focusing on her treatment, attending therapy twice a week, and participating in an outpatient program. She had sent me a few more messages. Some were sincere apologies. Others carried a passive-aggressive edge. I responded to the genuine ones with encouragement. The rest, I let go. As Christmas drew closer, the invitations from my parents became more persistent. "It's tradition," my mother insisted over the phone. "Lucas should be with family on Christmas." "We are family," I replied, repeating myself for what felt like the 100th time. "We're just creating our own traditions this year. But you're welcome to come over for Christmas Eve dinner if you'd like." To my surprise, they agreed. Even more surprising, they showed up on time. They brought thoughtful gifts for Lucas, and for once, there wasn't that usual undercurrent of criticism in the air. The evening wasn't perfect. My father made a few pointed remarks about their finances, but it was manageable. When they were leaving, my mother hugged me, hesitantly. "Thank you for including us," she said softly. And for once, it sounded genuine. That night, after Lucas went to bed practically buzzing with Christmas excitement, I sat alone beside our small tree, thinking about everything that had happened over the past month. The pain from Thanksgiving hadn't disappeared. But it had changed. It had become something else. Something that pushed me to finally make the changes I had needed for years. On Christmas Day, we hosted our own gathering. Natalie and her nephew came. 2 couples from work brought their kids. Vanessa and her husband joined us. Our house was full of laughter, real conversations, and something I hadn't felt in a long time: ease. "This is the best Christmas ever," Lucas said, running around with the other kids, looking around at the people who had chosen to be there, without obligation, without expectations. I realized I agreed. In therapy, Dr. Levin had asked me what I learned from everything that happened on Thanksgiving. At first, my answers had been bitter. Don't trust family. Everyone is selfish. But as time passed, those thoughts began to change. I realized that boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary. That my value isn't tied to how much I give, financially or emotionally. That family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, support, and love. And most importantly, breaking unhealthy patterns takes courage. But the peace that comes after? It's worth it. When January arrived, I received an unexpected email from Chloe. She told me she was moving to Colorado to join a specialized treatment program for her condition. "I need a fresh start," she wrote, "away from everything here. Maybe one day we can have a real relationship as sisters. But first, I need to work on myself." It was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. I wished her well, and I meant it. My parents slowly began adjusting to their new financial reality. They put the house on the market and started looking at smaller places, something they probably should have done years ago. Our relationship was still fragile, but it was changing, becoming something more balanced. One evening, while Lucas and I were cooking dinner together, he asked me something that caught me off guard. "Mom, are we still a family? Even if it's just us?" I set down what I was holding and knelt beside him. "Of course we are," I said gently. "Families come in all kinds of shapes. Sometimes it's a mom and dad and kids. Sometimes it's 2 parents of any kind. Sometimes grandparents raise children. And sometimes—" I smiled at him. "It's a mom and her amazing son." He thought about that for a moment, then nodded. "So we're still a family, just me and you." "That's right," I said, pulling him into a hug. "And we also have our chosen family, people like Natalie, Tyler, and Vanessa, people who love us for who we are." His simple understanding reminded me of something important. That painful Thanksgiving, it didn't break us. It led us somewhere better. As I tucked Lucas into bed that night, I realized the greatest thing to come out of all of this wasn't financial independence. It was the lesson he would carry with him, that he deserves respect, that boundaries are healthy. That real family, whether by blood or by choice, lifts you up, not tears you down. The healing journey isn't over. There will still be difficult conversations, boundaries to protect, growth ahead. But for the first time in years, I feel hopeful, not obligated. Sometimes the most meaningful gratitude doesn't come from what we give to others, but from what we finally allow ourselves to receive: respect, real connection, and peace. And maybe, one day, if my parents and Chloe truly understand that, we can build something new, not out of obligation, not out of dependence, but out of mutual respect. Until then, Lucas and I will keep building our own traditions, our own version of family, on our own terms. If there's one thing I want to say to you, it's this: you don't have to sacrifice yourself to be loved. The right people won't ask you to shrink. They'll meet you with respect. And sometimes choosing yourself doesn't mean losing your family. It means finally finding who you truly are. If this story spoke to you in any way, take a moment to pause and reflect on your own journey. Have you ever had to choose yourself, even when it was painful? Each other. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're allowed to set boundaries too. Subscribe to your strength. Because sometimes the first step to a better life is simply deciding you deserve one.